Alright, we are live, ladies and germs, and it is 10:43 a.m. right now on Sunday, June the 27th, 2021. I'm up this early because I was watching the Formula One race, which I will be reviewing in a little bit. But we're going to talk about what happened yesterday in the first of the doubleheader at Pocono. I'll be the first one to admit the Pocono race was, for the most part, a pretty good race, although it didn't start out that way. But there's a lot of misconceptions about what happened at the end of that race, because let's be completely honest here, people, Bowman didn't beat Larson. We're going to get into all that here in a minute though, so let's do an intro. This is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the Packerman, and welcome to this morning's edition of The Fuel. First of potentially three today. Where for this edition of The Fuel, we are going to be talking about the Pocono Organics 325 from the Pocono Raceway, the first of a doubleheader weekend at Pocono. It is our 96th episode of The Fuel. And the title of this episode, and this is something that I wanted to get into a little bit. Bowman did not beat Larson. I just want to make that perfectly clear. Yes, Bowman was the first one across the line as he steals another win, which is not the first time he's done it this season. But let's be completely honest here, people. Let's not pretend that Bowman, was able to beat Larson in this race. The only reason why, because it's just such a major misconception. Bowman snaps Larson's winning streak. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Because Bowman was not able to hold Larson at bay in that last run of race. The only thing that beat Larson was a flat tire. Let's not get it twisted here, people. Bowman did not beat Larson. A flat tire beat Larson. About sick and tired of that misconception going around. Because people don't seem to have a critical mind and just don't pay attention to shit like that. And don't get me wrong, Bowman, he ran a good race. And I was up front when it counted. And he did keep Larson at bay for a large majority of that final run of race. But let's not get it twisted. Like I said, Bowman did not beat Larson. He might have done it at Dover, but he did not do it here at Pocono. And it was only because of a flat tire in the final turn that Bowman ended up with the victory. So let's not pretend that Bowman somehow pulled off this Herculean feat of holding Larson at bay. Now, if he would have kept Larson behind him for that whole entire run race, then fine. We can go ahead and say that, but he did not. So let's not pretend that Bowman, you know, defeated Larson straight up, because he did. I've been seeing that a lot. But that being said, what this does do is extends Hendrick's winning streak. They have now won 6 consecutive races since Alex Bowman won at Dover. Because then I think Chase Elliott won at Coda, and then 3 straight from Larson, including the All-Star. Well, you include the All-Star race, it's actually 7 straight. So then you had Bowman at Dover, and then Chase Elliott at Circuit of the Americas, then the last 3 from Larson, and then Pocono here by Bowman. So needless to say, Hendrick Motorsports has been on quite the roll. Speaking of Hendrick Motorsports, let's get into the headlines real quick. Jeff Gordon has reported that he is going to be leaving Fox. He was in the Fox broadcast booth for a couple of years, but news broke earlier this week that Gordon is going to serve as the second highest official at Hendrick Motorsports, as vice chairman of that team. Of course, Jeff Gordon spent pretty much his entire career at Hendrick Motorsports, particularly driving the 24 car. Of course, he started his career at the now famous 1992 Hooters 500. He made his debut there driving the 24 car, and now he's going to be taking up a role as vice chairman, basically the right-hand man of Rick Hendrick. So it basically sets Gordon up to be the successor of Hendrick if Hendrick does decide to retire. I mean, Hendrick is 71 years of age, so we don't know how much longer Hendrick is going to keep doing this, but if and when Hendrick decides to retire in the next couple of years, Gordon would be the one to basically be the successor to that, and he will formally begin the executive management role at the start of 2022. And Hendrick said that Jeff and I have talked about this for many years. I feel it's a natural evolution for him and our company. He understands our culture, our values, and the importance we place on our people and our partnerships. So needless to say, this is a pretty big deal. And I guess now the question is, who's going to replace Gordon at Fox? Because it was a 3-man team of Boyer, Gordon, and Mike Joy, but now Gordon's not going to be there, so who's going to be his replacement? We don't know that right now, but there's a pretty interesting little deal that's going on. So Gordon is going to be jumping back into a role at Hendrick Motorsports, and he's going to be the vice chairman of that team. Of course, he won 93 races and 4 championships with them in his tenure as a driver. So, I mean, Gordon becoming the right-hand man of Rick Hendrick, I mean, it's a natural fit. It's absolutely a natural fit, and it absolutely makes sense to me. Also in the news this week, there has been some reports coming out that Roush has all but confirmed that Keselowski has signed a deal to join Roush Fenway Racing in 2022, which will also include a co-ownership role of the team. Now, whether this will mean the team will change to Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing is yet to be seen. But for all intents and purposes, the move has been signed. A deal has been made for Brad Keselowski to join Roush Fenway Racing in 2022. Which, if that is the case, then that would leave the 2 team open. So naturally, you'd be kind of thinking, well, who's going to join the 2 team next year if that was the case? Well, a lot of people might be thinking it might be, oh shit. See, this is why I shouldn't be doing these reviews earlier in the morning, because I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Austin Cindric. There we go. It took a second there. Some people are thinking that Austin Cindric might be moving up from the Xfinity Series to take over that 2 team. Some might be speculating that Matt DiBenedetto might get moved over to Penske to drive the 2-car next year. At this point, we have absolutely no idea. But let's wait and see who gets displaced at Roush, because currently Roush has Chris Buescher and Ryan Newman driving for them. So unless they open up a third team, one of those two are going to get displaced. Probably Newman in all likelihood, because Newman has been a part of the Cup Series since 2002. So this is his 20th season in the series, and let's be honest here, Newman just, I mean, I think he's been in the back half of his career for a while now. And it's pretty obvious that Newman he just doesn't have the pace anymore, really. I mean, he gets a top 10 here and there, but I mean, he just does not have the pace in the Cup Series anymore, I'm sorry to say. So in all likelihood, Keselowski is going to be moving into the 6-car for Roush in 2022 if this deal has indeed been signed. So where would that put Newman? Who knows at this point. But silly season is really going to be kicking into high gear here, as we are at the halfway point of the 2021 season, because the Pocono Organics 325 was round number 18 of 36. So we are halfway through 2021. Kind of crazy to think about. But this is still a developing story. This story has been developing for the past couple weeks. Nothing has really been confirmed. There have been some reports that that the deal has been done, but we're going to wait for official confirmation from Brad Keselowski and Penske Racing before we can finally say, yeah, this has finally been done. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But finally, before we get into the review, a bit of sad news came out of the racing world, as it was reported that Xfinity Series legend Jack Ingram passed away earlier this week. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find this. He passed away earlier this week at the age of 84. He won 5 NASCAR championships. He won more than 300 races in his career. He drove in the sportsman division during the 1970s. He won championships in 72, 73, and 74. And then he moved up into well, actually, he was still part of the Sportsman Series, and then it kind of NASCAR kind of reconfigured it and turned it into what we now know as the Xfinity Series in 1982. He won the first Xfinity title in 82. He finished second to Sam Ard, which was a rival of his, in 83 and 84, but then he captured the 85 title. So he had 31 career Xfinity Series wins, and he was inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2014. He was 84 years of age. So thoughts and prayers go out to Jack Ingram's friends and family. NASCAR definitely lost one of its best, to say the least, earlier this week. So that sucks, man. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the race review itself. The 2021 Pocono Organics 325. My thoughts on this race. This was a weird one to kind of convey, because the first two stages were kind of crappy. You know, not really a whole lot of racing going on. There were a lot of cautions. There were 5 cautions in the first 2 stages. So this was a pretty messy affair. And after stage 2 was completed, I was thinking, man, this is just typical Pocono at this point. and this was really looking like a 3 out of 10 race for me at this point. At least until that third stage began. That third stage was a banger, with all the different strategies and then that race at the end. I mean, the third stage, I think, saved this race. Let's be completely honest here, because the first 2 stages were fucking trash. But let's go ahead and get into it. So Cole Custer was the only car to the rear of the field for failing pre-race tech inspection twice. So the stages broke down like this. It was only a 130 lap race. It was a 325 mile race. Why don't they just make these 300 mile races? You know, it's back-to-back Pocono races. Just make them 300 mile races instead of 325 and 350. Like, that makes no goddamn sense. Or, better yet, how about you have one on the triangle and one on the road course? That would certainly make things a lot more interesting. But anyway, all that aside, stage 1, 25 laps. Let's go ahead and get into it. Kyle Larson starts on the pole. Because of course he does. This of course was with the formula. I mean, he absolutely obliterated the field last week at Nashville. Byron did not get off to a good start. He fell from 2nd to 4th. Larson leads lap number 1. Elliott actually ended up with left rear damage after getting run into on the start by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece actually had some front end damage. Byron was able to recover, get back up to 2nd, and actually passed Larson for the lead going into turn 2. Huh? So we had our first pure lead change on lap number 5. Kyle Busch gets by Harvick for 4th. Kyle Busch actually had a good car in this race as well. We had our first caution on lap 9 for debris. They were planning on a competition caution at lap 12, but since this caution came a wee bit early, they decided to make this the competition caution. And why that's important is because before a competition caution, if NASCAR calls for one, cars can come in for pit stops, but they cannot fuel the car, basically. Can't put any fuel in the car until the competition caution. So that's why this was kind of important. About half the field comes in for service. Because this is kind of a pseudo road course type of racetrack, even though it's a triangle, it runs like a road course in a lot of ways. Because all the corners are different and all the straightaways are different. A lot of teams were basically running this race backwards, like a road course, where you get to a certain point in the race, you pit, and that'll be the last time you pit in the race. A lot of different strategies in this one. So about half the field comes in for service. Byron leads on the restart. Kyle Busch with a great restart, moving up to 3rd, with Harvick moving up to 4th. We have our second caution on lap 14. Cole Custer has a hard hit into the front stretch wall after getting tagged by Keselowski. It looked like going down the front stretch, Cole Custer was going to come up in front of Keselowski, and Keselowski, anticipating that, was going to dive underneath him to make the inside move going into turn 1. But Custer kind of stopped midway up and didn't really come up fully in front of Keselowski, and that kind of caught Keselowski off guard. And as Keselowski tried to do the dive bomb, he basically hooked Cole Custer in the he hit Cole Custer in the left rear, and that sent Custer into the outside wall, and it pretty much destroyed the front end of Custer's car. I mean, the front tires were completely off the ground. I mean, that's how badly the front of the car was bent in. And it damaged the 2 car. He did actually manage to recover to get a top 10 finish out of it, though. So Byron leads on the restart. Kyle Busch moves up to 2nd on the restart and then passes Byron for the lead going into turn 3. Several drivers come in for stops before the pits close at the end of the stage, which was to be expected. Logano gets by Harvick for 4th. Rain actually started to fall a little bit at the end of this stage, but it wasn't really enough to dampen the track or anything like that. Might have made things a little bit slicker out there, but it was only a temporary rain shower. It moved on after the stage came to an end. Kyle Busch won stage number 1. Pretty boring first stage. A large majority of the field comes in for service, but Logano decides to stay out. So we get to stage 2, which was 52 laps. Logano leads the start of stage 2. Kyle Busch starts bull rushing back towards the field on fresh tires. But it wasn't just him. It was Larson, Byron, Busch, and Hamlin. They were all basically in one big pack, fighting in the mid pack amongst each other while trying to make their way forward. It was actually pretty interesting to watch. Green flag pit stops were already beginning on lap 41 because, again, varying strategies going on. Logano and Kurt Busch pit from the lead on lap 46. Chastain inherits the lead, and then right in the middle of pit stops, we got our third caution on lap 53 when Ryan Newman spins on the backstretch after getting loose in turn 1. He was all by himself. A large majority of the field comes in for service. Kyle Busch stays out and leads on the restart, but then we get our fourth caution on lap 60. Corey LaJoie takes a spin down the front stretch after pinching Anthony Alfredo into the wall off of turn number 3. Kyle Busch leads on the restart. Stenhouse gets penalized for a restart violation. Apparently you're not supposed to lay back on the restart to try to get the run, and Stenhouse kind of did that. NASCAR noticed and gave him a restart violation. We have our fifth caution on lap 72. Ross Chastain spins off turn 3 after smacking the wall in the tunnel turn, which cut down the right rear tire, and as he was trying to limp it back to the pit lane, he basically spun on the apron, and that brought out the caution. About half the field comes in for service. Kurt Busch leads on the restart with 2 laps to go on the stage. Larson gets a great restart, moving up to second, and then makes a move on Logano, or up to third rather, and makes a move on Logano for second, but is unable to catch Kurt Busch, who wins stage number 2. So at this point in the race, I'm thinking, man, this has been a pretty messy affair. Not really a whole lot in terms of battles for the lead, or battles on track for that matter. But let me take a look real quick here. The racing reference real quick. How many on-track passes were there in this race? Inquiring Minds wants to know. There were 2,406 green flag passes in this race. That's an average of 22.9 per lap. Certainly didn't feel that way, I'll say that much. Although I have been enjoying NBC's broadcast a hell of a lot more than Fox's, I'll tell you that much. But at this point in the race, I was thinking to myself, man, this has been a pretty messy affair. Not really a whole lot of passing going on, it felt like. This is really feeling like a 2 or 3 on the fuel gauge at this point. This third stage ended up saving this race. It was 53 laps. Kurt Busch led the start of stage 3. Larson challenges Busch for the race lead and takes the lead in the tunnel turn. Kurt tries to come back on the inside, but gets really tight in turn 3 and has to lift off the throttle. And Larson with our second pure lead change on lap number 84. Truex kicks off green flag stops on lap 90. There were some drivers who were taking just 2 tires or fuel only in some cases. Larson pits from the lead on lap 93 and is able to stay in front of Harvick, who took just fuel and leapfrogged a couple of drivers. DiBenedetto gets a penalty for taking equipment out of the pit box. The gas man was fueling the car, and as the car was leaving, he didn't completely disconnect the gas can, and it got ripped out of his hands. Now, if the gas can would have stayed in the pit box, it wouldn't have been a penalty, but the gas can just barely crossed over the line, and that ends up being a penalty. That's kind of a no-brainer there. Kyle Busch takes just fuel and cycles ahead of Larson. So the Kyle and Kyle show is alive and well once again. I was thinking, man, could it really come down to Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson for this race win? With Kyle Busch just taking fuel and Larson on 4 fresh tires. It was a very interesting little deal right here. And then the caution came out on lap 108 for debris, and I was thinking, damn it. But it's okay, because the next bit would still be good. About half the field comes in for service. Kyle Busch leads on the restart, but Alex Bowman, instead of calling him Bowman the Showman, they all called him the Sniper, because there's been a couple of occasions this year where he's stolen a win. This one in particular, and I remember Richmond earlier this year when he stole the win there. I ought to start calling him the Sniper, because he's been sniping some wins in recent weeks. but he gets a great run on the inside and takes the lead on the restart. Larson gets by Busch for second and begins chasing his teammate Bowman for the race lead. And it was a great battle from the restart all the way towards the end of this race. The last 30 laps, there was just back and forth between these two. Larson would get a run, but Bowman would be able to hold him off. And then finally, Larson was able to make the pass with 4 laps to go in the tunnel turn for a third pure lead change on lap 127. It was a great battle, and it was looking like Larson was on his way to victory. But then on the final lap, they did a close-up on Larson's car as he was going through the Long Pond straightaway, and I noticed that the left front tire was flexing a little bit. And I was thinking to myself, that left front tire looks a little soft. I was like, that tire can't be going down, could it? And then he goes to the tunnel turn. He gets ready to go by the 66 car, and he's getting ready to go into turn 3 to basically get ready to claim this victory. And then all of a sudden, you see smoke pouring out of that left front wheel well. And I was thinking to myself, oh my god, that tire is going down. And it ended up going flat, and he goes right into the wall. And Alex Bowman steals the win in the Pocono Organics 325. Larson would end up limping across the line at 9th, so he does still end up with a top 10 finish, but all things considered, he should have had 4 straight at this point. It seems like the only thing at this point that can beat Kyle Larson is mechanical issues. Because it's obvious to me that he has no equal right now. I mean, Bowman certainly gave him a run for his money, and maybe Kyle Busch in this race as well. But those two have really been the only ones who could challenge Larson at this point in the season. But, as I said, Bowman did not beat Larson. A flat tire beat Larson. And that's all I got to say about that. So, let's dive into some statistics. I'll give you the race results, point standings, my final rating, and that'll be it for this review. Yeah, I gotta get ready for the Formula 1 review. Probably take a little nap beforehand, though. And then get ready to watch the second Pocono race, which its green flag is not until 3:49. Don't really know why that is. It's a longer race, but it's starting later. Makes no goddamn sense. But overall lead changes. There were 14 overall lead changes in this race. No, it's not 2 pure lead changes. Damn it. I forgot to change that. It's 4 pure lead changes. And we had 6 total caution flags in this race. But 5 of them were in the first 2 stages. There was only the debris caution in stage number 3. So stage 3 was actually the cleanest portion of the race, and it ended up being the most interesting part of the race. And it's honestly the stage that ended up saving this race, because otherwise this race was probably only going to get like a 3 or something like that. So, race results. Alex Bowman with the win. He led 16 laps. But let's be honest here, it was a gift. It was a gift from the gods that he won this race. Kyle Busch in second, William Byron in third, Denny Hamlin finally gets back into the top 5 for the first time in a bit. Ryan Blaney comes home in 5th. It's been a while since he had a good run. Kurt Busch starting to string together some top 10 finishes. Joey Logano in 7th, Kevin Harvick in 8th. Kyle Larson, despite losing the left front tire, limps home in 9th, and Brad Keselowski salvages a top 10 out of what was a pretty crappy day, to say the least, after he got into that little schmozzle with Cole Custer. Point standings, they look a little different because I had to get these off of Racing Reference, because for some reason the standing sheet on NASCAR.com was not available, which was absolutely weird. So Denny Hamlin continues to lead the point standings, but despite Larson's troubles, because of the stage points that Larson earned, he is only 8 points behind Hamlin for the regular season points lead. Byron is third with 655. He's 74 points out. Logano fourth. Chase Elliott rounds out the top 5. Then you have Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney, and Brad Keselowski rounding out the top 10. Your top 16 at this point are Alex Bowman, who now has 3 wins. That's kind of mind-boggling. Alex Bowman has 3 wins on the year, yet he's only 11th in the point standings. That just shows you how inconsistent he's kind of been this year. But he's only had 12 lead lap finishes out of 18, as opposed to some of these other guys. But Austin Dillon in 12th, Tyler Reddick 13th, Kurt Busch in 14th, Christopher Bell 15th. Chris Buescher is 16th in the points, but he's actually on the outside looking in because of Michael McDowell having that win in the Daytona 500. And you have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Daniel Suarez moves into the top 20. So I tell you what, that Trackhouse Racing team is punching well above their weight in their first season in the Cup Series. 3 top 10 finishes. That's more than I could have ever said. And 10 lead lap finishes. That's pretty good. And Matt DiBenedetto, who's only had 9 lead lap finishes, rounds out the top 20. As for my final rating for the Pocono Organics 325, this race ended up being a lot better overall than I thought it was going to be. I mean, after that second stage, it was looking like a 2 or 3 out of 10 race. But that third stage, I think, really elevated this race to a good standing. So my final rating for the Pocono Organics 325, I'm going to give it a solid 7 on the fuel gauge. So a 7 out of 10, which I think is the highest rating I've given a race at Pocono in quite some time. It's not very often that Pocono delivers a good race, but it certainly did yesterday. So there you go. I guess a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. But that is going to do it for this edition of The Fuel. Of course, I got the Formula 1 review coming up as well. But I gotta get that set up first and do that here in a little bit, probably after I take a little nap. So thank you very much for watching this edition of The Fuel. I got the second half of the doubleheader later on today. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the Packer Man signing out. See you later.
Thank you for watching tonight's video. Be sure to like and subscribe, you rats!